Welcome to the Self Reliant Living Show, where we talk all about a self-reliant lifestyle to save money, live greener, eat healthier, and be prepared for anything so you can take care of the ones you love in good times and bad. I'm your host, Jennifer Osuch, a homeschooling mom of 3 boys. I'm the author of the Preparedness Planner series, and my husband and I are the lead teachers of Self Reliance School, a website dedicated to giving you the skills and confidence to take care of yourself and your community. Be sure to stop by and pick up your free videos from inside Self Reliance School that will get you started growing, cooking, and preserving your own food today. You can pick these up at selfreliantschool.com/free. Now, on with the show. Welcome to a self-reliant living. And there are several ways to watch. I just went over them, but let me go over them again. And that is on Facebook Live and on Periscope, and then also at selfreliantlife.tv, selfreliantlife.tv, and that's where you can catch all the replays. And then we are also going to be on iTunes and Stitcher. That's coming soon. We're not quite there yet. And then it's going to be at this time every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern and 10 a.m. Pacific. So we're going to do this every week, and so I hope that you will join me. Then I also want to say just one thing, and that is a note that if we do drop off, because this is live, it's live on Periscope, live on Facebook, that you can catch the replay because of the nature of live TV, which is it's sometimes good and sometimes not. So we're just going to keep going, and if we get back to the live stream, that's great. If not, then you can go ahead and catch us on the replay. So let me go ahead and tell you on Facebook Live, if you could share this, that would be great, and you can do that by clicking the share button. And then if you're on Periscope, you can share by swiping. I'm not for sure if it's swipe up or down or which way it is. I know it's different on Android and on iPhone. So, but you swipe somehow to share it, and I'd appreciate it if you would. If you're watching this on the replay, welcome, and you can still share even if you are watching on the replay. So I would appreciate it if you would. If you're watching on Facebook, be sure to click the notifications so that you can be notified whenever we go live. It'll just show up where the rest of your notifications are. And then on Periscope, of course, it'll show up as well. Like I said, those are kind of, those are a little better, I think, right now to notify people when somebody that you want to watch goes live. So the benefits of doing a show in all of these formats, well, Facebook Live and then Periscope, of course, are interactive. So you can ask questions and add your comments and talk with some of the other viewers. And so that is, I think, a great benefit because it forms a community, and it's, it's about everybody and us helping each other. So I think that is really important. And so that's the reason we decided to do this as a live stream. And then if you are watching on selfreliantlife.tv, or if you are listening in iTunes, then you can be one of those binge watchers and just kind of consume everything at one time, and that's perfectly fine too. I know I've done that on occasion, and that's helpful to have everything there at one time. But you can listen to the download if you are one of those people on the go. Like I said, we're going to be in iTunes and on Stitcher real soon. We just have to get that set up. We had to get the first one going, and then we will get a stream going in iTunes. So you can subscribe there in just a few days. So the replay will be at selfreliantlife.tv/001 for this particular show. And then we will have all the shows listed if you go to selfreliantlife.tv. So just wanted to mention all of those things because, like I said, it feels like mission control here. I have all these screens, and I want to make sure that everybody knows where to go and how to watch, because like I said, I think it's important that we form a community. So I want to tell you a little bit about who I am before we start. My name is Jennifer Osuch, and I am the author of the Preparedness Planner series. We have several planners that help you with preparedness and self-reliant living. And my husband and I are the lead teachers at Self Reliance School. And we teach gardening, cooking, and preserving skills there. So we are always there, and you can contact us there as well. And now I'm the host of this show, Self Reliant Living. So welcome to the very first show. And it's great to have you here. And like I said, we are just going to plow through this and hope that we don't drop off, and that we're good on all platforms. And that's one other thing I wanted to mention before I get into things, and that is that if you do drop off, or if we drop off, wherever the internet problems are, then you can switch from one to the other, Periscope and Facebook Live. So if Periscope's acting up for you, then just go on over to Facebook Live and vice versa, and you still should be able to participate and watch the show. So, and that I hope you do. Okay, so let's just get into today's topic. I wanted to start kind of broad, and this is just like the first show, so I wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page. And so I want to talk about why we would even want to be self-reliant in today's world, because it seems like we live in the world of convenience. So why is it important to be self-reliant? Well, the number one thing is, if you're self-reliant, you can save yourself a ton of money, a ton. So we'll talk more about that in just a second. The second reason is that you can control ingredients, especially when you make your own food. So you eat healthier. When you're self-reliant, when you live a self-reliant lifestyle, you eat healthier. And that's really important today, because it's so hard to be healthy in today's world. Then also, you live a greener life. You're closer to nature. And then the final thing is, you're always prepared for anything that might happen. So those are my four reasons to be self-reliant. So let's talk about those in depth for just a second. And when I say self-reliant, I don't mean living off by yourself in a cave somewhere. I mean forming a local community where you're not relying on government and big corporations. Not that I'm anti-government or anti-corporation or anything like that, but it seems to me that there needs to be more of a balance these days. And so when you are more self-reliant, I think you create some of that balance that's missing today. So let's take these one at a time and talk a little bit more about them and where to start. Okay, so when you save money by living, it's almost, I've been doing it for so long now that it's almost one of those things where it's just like a no-brainer. You just totally can save a ton of money. Let me give you an example. If you make your own bread, you're looking at maybe 50 cents worth of ingredients that it takes to make that bread. And that's a healthy loaf too. So if you go to the store and you buy a healthy loaf, not the gummy white stuff that you can find on sale for $1 or whatever, but even $1, right? 50 cents, $1. But a decent loaf of bread is like, what, $4 or $5 in some places. In most places where I live, it is. And so that's just unbelievable. You can save a ton of money. And then if you save a ton of money, of course, you have more power to do other things. So that is really important. And then I just touched on eating healthier, right? And eating healthier, like I said, is really important today, because it's hard to do that with all the convenience things that are coming our way and in our face most of the time. But if you are self-reliant and you're controlling all of your ingredients, you're just by nature just eating a healthier diet, and that's important because we want to be able to contribute and help other people, and that is one way to do it, by staying healthy. And then living greener, again, I touched on this, you're just closer to nature. When you have a garden, you are outside and you are in the dirt. You can't get much more closer to nature than having your hands in the dirt. And that's important today because there are kids, they're growing up and they don't understand how things are grown. They don't understand how vegetables are grown. They don't understand that they're planted in the dirt. They think they come from the store. So I think that's important for our planet, for our children, and to leave our planet in a better state than when we found it, right? From when we were born, and all the conveniences that have developed. And then, of course, to be prepared, and that is, if you're self-reliant, it doesn't matter what happens. You can take care of yourself and your family and your community. So to me, those 4 things are very important. And so that's one of the reasons that we're self-reliant, or we strive to live a self-reliant lifestyle. So where to start? Where to start to become self-reliant? What components do you focus on first? And so let's just break it down, in terms of the things that I think are the most important places to start, and that is growing your own food. I just mentioned your hands in the dirt, and so growing your own food, I think it's the most basic thing that you can do to be self-reliant. And then cooking that food that's, or having a food that's locally grown. And let me back up for just one second and say that with growing your own food, I mean growing things that are native to your area, so that you understand how the growing cycle works in your area, and so that you can contribute to growing food if you had to on a larger scale. And so growing your own food that's native to your area, and then cooking that food. Now, just because you're cooking the food doesn't necessarily mean that you have to grow every single thing that you cook, right? But food that's grown locally is important because you're supporting your local community, and again, it could be grown if you needed it to be grown. And then preserving that food that you grow or that you get locally. So those 3 things, I think, are the most important components to focus on when you're first starting. Now, those are not the only components. After I think you get those down, then you can move on to building your own house, building your own things, and then becoming your own healthcare provider and providing medical help for your family, and health benefits in terms of knowing different kinds of herbs and things like that. And then you can learn that and be more self-reliant in terms of your health care. And then all things DIY, that would be more advanced, and things like sewing, living off-grid, and those kinds of things. So those are the things that I think are secondary to the most important components. That is, again, growing your own food, the things that grow native in your area, cooking that food, and then also preserving. So where should you start, right? I think you should go ahead and really focus on those important components. But then how do you even start doing that? How do you start growing your own food? I mean, that's like, most people don't have a farm or land or anything like that. So how do you do that? How do you start? And where should you start? Should you start growing? Should you start cooking? Should you start preserving? Well, I think you should start wherever it makes sense for your family. So how we got started, We got started, basically, Bill and I got started with preparedness and saving money. And the reason for that is that we changed our diet, and we wanted to eat healthier, and we wanted to have organic produce, and we just wanted to make that change for our family. Our two younger boys had some asthma issues, and they were pretty severe. So we thought it was really important to change the way we ate, and we wanted to afford, the best stuff. Well, obviously, organic produce is more expensive than the conventional stuff, and so we decided, hey, we need to grow some of our own food. So that is where we started. That is how we came to the idea of saving money and growing your own food. So we started off doing that, and then we also saw some problems, and still do see some problems today in the world. And we thought, well, this is a great way to be prepared. So if you go to our blog and you read our blog in chronological order, you'll see that that's sort of the trend in the early days. And then we've graduated a bit into more of the healthy living and greener living aspects. Because one thing that happened when we did this is that both of our sons had asthma, or have asthma. You don't really ever get cured from it. But our younger son had very, very severe asthma, and I'm talking so severe that the doctor sat me down and explained to me how some children stop breathing in the middle of the night. So that was really scary, and it was that severe. He was on an inhaler every day. He would cough constantly, and so we had some real issues there. But they cleared up after we started changing his diet, and he eats more whole foods now, and that's the reason that as of his last doctor's appointment with his allergist and asthma doctor, he did not even register any kind of breathing problems on the scale. So that to me is tremendous, and that's one of the reasons that I'm an advocate for eating healthier and living a greener lifestyle, because that to me is amazing, and it is something that I want to share. So tips on how to start, right? So how do you start? How do you start growing your own food? It's just so overwhelming. Like I said, most of us were not trained to be farmers. So what do we do, right? And it's not like it's a class in school. We don't have a gardening class. We have history and math and reading and all that. So how do you start? Well, I would advise you just to start growing one thing, just one thing. And so it could be tomatoes. Tomatoes are a really popular thing to grow, and you can get a lot of information on tomatoes. There's books just on how to grow tomatoes, and there's a ton of different kinds of information online to grow tomatoes, because those, like I said, that's one of the most popular things to grow. So you will have a wealth of information, and probably one of your friends already does that, and if not, then I would recommend you definitely get into a community where people like to grow things, and I know that will be one of the things that they like to grow is tomatoes, because like I said, it's really, really a popular thing, and it's also one of the things that has a huge taste difference. So once you taste homegrown tomatoes, I'm pretty sure you'll never go back. I promise you'll never go back. Another really easy thing to start growing are herbs. So if you have a favorite herb that you like, then you should go ahead and start growing that herb. Then the next thing would be your favorite fruits or vegetables, because if you love it, then you're going to take care of it, and you're going to want to grow it, and you're going to completely, really have a lot of expectations and watch it every day, just kind of like a baby, because you really want to eat that thing, right? So those are the three things that I would recommend you do to start growing your own food. And it doesn't have to be a whole crop of tomatoes or a whole bunch of herbs. or a whole bunch of your favorite food. It can just be one. It can be one tomato plant. That's just fine. Or one herb plant. That's fine. Just put it in a windowsill or something, and that's just a start. And it'll build some confidence. And then also, like I said, it could just be a lemon tree, or something that you keep inside. You don't even have to plant it outside for it to bear fruit. So, and then some tips on how to get started cooking whole foods and the foods that you grow. And my biggest tip is just to start with bread because you save so much money, and that's just such a good feeling, because you've done it yourself, and you made that bread. It's going to taste so much better. I promise. It really will. Then maybe if there is a favorite beverage, because I know that beverages are really hard for people, especially if you're a soda drinker or something like that. Those are some of the worst things that you can eat or consume. And if you start by making your own, then you've taken a huge step already, because you've taken the other thing out of the bad beverage out and put the good beverage in. And then another way that you could start cooking your own food, if you haven't already, is to get something that's your favorite, like a restaurant meal, or something that's already packaged, mac and cheese, something like that, and just create your own. Take that one thing and cook it from scratch and see how much better it tastes. And then just get really good at cooking that one thing. You don't have to cook everything, just that one thing, and that will give you a place to start. Okay, so how do you start preserving, right? Because that's a whole different ball game. That's a little bit more advanced, but again, it's important because you are able to save so much money. Because if you go to a place that sells wholesome food, then you're looking at at least $5 for jam that you could make for maybe $1, right? So saving money is huge with preserving. And then also, like I said, you get to pick the ingredients that go in there. So where do you start? Do you start with canning? Do you start with dehydrating? Do you start with fermenting? Well, I say that it depends on what is important to you. So if convenience is important, then I would say start with canning. Because if you can things and when you're ready to use them, all you need to do is take them off the shelf, and there you have it. You're done, right? You've already put in the work beforehand, and then so you can have that convenience when you need it. Then if it's important to have things that are light and easy to store and kind of transportable, then start with dehydrating. Because if you dehydrate, all of the food that you preserve will be just that. They'll be ready to go on a hike whenever you are. And then if health is important to you, then I suggest that you start with fermenting, because you can, there are a lot of health benefits to fermenting food. And although that's not as easy a way to preserve food, it definitely is a way to preserve food. And if, like I said, if you are interested in eating healthier, then that is definitely a place to start for you. So, I have my notes here, so I'm referring to my notes when I look down. So let's just say that you have all that down, right? So then how do you go ahead and move on to the next things? And we just talked about that just a minute ago. That was building, and then being your own health advocate, and then also doing other things that are just do it yourself. Well, I say that you don't really have to wait, but I would put more emphasis on the growing, cooking, and preserving. I would get that down before I focused on these other things. Not to say that you wouldn't ever do these things, while you're doing the others, but I would put the growing your own food and cooking your own food and preserving your own food, I would put those first. And then I would have, kind of like as a hobby or kind of in the background, building something. or maybe reading a book on herbs and how they help you medicinally. And then maybe if you like to do crafts, maybe you could sew a little bit. And when I say these advanced skills, I mean relying on them, because I know a lot of people tinker here and there. I'm talking about relying on them where you know that you could provide whatever your family needed by yourself. And so you can, go ahead and learn these things, but I'm saying to focus on the food first, because we have to eat, right? That is like one of the most important things we as humans have to address is food. Okay, so we don't wait until we're completely masters at the food thing, right? And go ahead and start with the other things. But like I said, kind of master those first before you put the other things full force. Okay. And then also try and find a community that is like-minded. Try and find a place where you feel at home, where you are doing this with other people, because you learn so much more if you are around people who like the same things you do, who want the same things you do. And then also another tip is to take some projects and give them completion dates. That helps so much when you say, okay, I'm going to have this done by such and such date. Because then it becomes a goal and it becomes something that you're striving for. And it's not just something that you want to get started with, it's something that you're doing. And you have a date where you're going to have it done. Okay. And like I said, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. I definitely would put the food first. I think that is very important. But that's not to say that you don't work on the other things as well when you are working on your food. Okay, so again, I'm referring to my notes. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to mention is that these skills never leave you. So it doesn't have to be all or nothing in the sense that you don't have to be making bread all the time. If you don't have the time to do that and you're concentrating on something else, that's just fine. But the thing is, you know how to do it, and that skill is never going to leave you. You need to practice it every now and again. I'm not saying that, because I'm learning as I get older that I forget a lot of things, and I do need to keep practicing these things, but it's really unlikely that I'm ever going to totally forget where to start, especially if I needed to. So that's a big thing. Everyone has seasons in life, and if this isn't a season where you feel comfortable cooking totally from scratch, maybe have a big garden, or vice versa. Maybe you have a big garden, but somebody else is helping you cook and take those things and preserve them. Or maybe you are taking advantage of the season and you are preserving things, but you don't have a garden yourself, and that's okay. It's just fine to start like that and to start wherever your family needs you to start, if that makes sense. So maybe if you have 3 kids under 5, gardening is just it's not going to be your gardening year, and that's okay. Maybe you're doing something else. Maybe you're concentrating on making some bread and maybe sewing some clothes for your kids, and that's just fine. I've done that. When my kids were little, that's where I concentrated. So you do not have to have you don't have to do every single thing at the same time and be totally self-reliant and live on an island. That's not what we're talking about here. So I just want to be clear, because if you start thinking that way, you're going to give up, because it's impossible. It is impossible. I don't think God meant us to live on an island by ourselves. He meant us to live in a community, and that means that we rely on other people in our community and that we don't do every single thing ourselves. But isn't it great that we have those skills if we need them? So, some final thoughts about being self-reliant, and that is, if you have these skills, if you know them and you practice some of them, have such a feeling of accomplishment that it's just, there's no feeling like it in the world. And so I highly recommend that you try it just to get that high, just to get that wonderful sense of, hey, I did that. And anybody can do this. It's not rocket science. You can totally live a self-reliant lifestyle, even in today's world of convenience. You can totally do that, and you can take advantage of communities like our website, selfreliantschool.com. You can go there and read tons of things on how to be more self-reliant. So when you're self-reliant, it's really not about taking care of yourself. It's not about you. It's about being able to take care of yourself so that you can help others. That's what it's about, is helping others and not creating a burden on others, is so that you can take care of yourself and be in a place where you can help people that need your help, your loved ones, your community, and people like that. So if you are joining us in the middle of the show, then again, I want to say that my name is Jennifer Osuch, and I am from selfreliantschool.com. I would love to share some free videos with you, and they are totally my gift to you. So if you go to selfreliantschool.com/free, you could get those free videos, and those are videos about being self-reliant and some skills. So they are totally free, like I said. So I would encourage you to go there and see what I'm talking about, see what all this self-reliant stuff is all about. So, and again, I want to say that, because I think this is another kind of misunderstanding, in that, well, self-reliance is just selfish, and that's not the case. The case is that when you're self-reliant, you can take care of you and you can take care of others. And if you're okay, then you can go and help other people, and you can be there for your loved ones.
I'm so glad you could join me today. Here's what to do next. Head over to selfreliantlife.tv to pick up the show notes for this episode and to watch replays of older episodes. To go directly to the show notes for this episode, go to selfreliantlife.tv, and then without a space, type a / and then the number of today's episode. You can watch this show live every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, live on Facebook or the Periscope app. Don't forget to stop by selfreliantschool.com/free to get your free Self-Reliant School videos that will help you get started living a self-reliant life. Also, if you're listening to this show as a podcast and you've liked what you've heard today, please subscribe through Stitcher, iTunes, or your favorite podcast app. If you're on a mobile device, just search for the Self-Reliant Living Show. If you're on a laptop or desktop, just go to selfreliantlife.tv/iTunes. And while you're there, please leave a review. I love to hear from you. You leaving feedback makes it easier for others that are interested in living a self-reliant life to find my podcast. Take care until we talk again.